April 6, 1945. Central Germany. Two American soldiers, MPs from the 90th Infantry Division, stopped two French women on a road near the village of Merkers. Routine check. Displaced persons are everywhere in this part of Thuringia. The Reich is collapsing. The women are carrying something, not weapons, not contraband in the usual sense, gold. The MPs ask where it came from. The women point toward a mine, the Kaiserroda salt mine, just outside town. They'd been forced laborers there. Now they're trying to escape with whatever they can carry. The soldiers don't know it yet, but they've just stumbled onto the greatest treasure discovery in military history. Staff Sergeant Bill Wilkins and Private First Class Clyde Harmon follow the lead. They requisition a jeep, drive to the mine entrance. What they find is a facility still partially operational, German civilians and forced laborers moving in and out. The mine has been used for storage, that much is obvious. But storage of what? The Germans are evasive, nervous. The mine shafts descend over 2,000 feet into the earth. There are miles of tunnels down there, carved into ancient salt deposits, perfect for preservation, stable temperature, no humidity. The Nazis have been using these mines across Germany to hide things from Allied bombing, art, records, machinery. But the Germans here are more frightened than usual. Wilkins and Harmon report back to their commanding officer. Within hours, a military intelligence team arrives. Captain John Tressler takes charge. He orders the mine sealed, guards posted, no one in or out. Then he begins interrogating the German workers. One of them breaks. Kaiserroda isn't just storing art or machinery, it's holding something far more valuable. The man mentions gold bullion, currency reserves. He mentions a specific chamber, 100 feet down, behind a bricked-up wall. Tressler doesn't waste time. April 7, 1945. He takes a team underground. They descend in a rickety industrial elevator, cables groaning, down through darkness. The temperature drops. The air grows thick with salt. At the bottom, they navigate through tunnels carved by hand over decades. Electric lights flicker. The deeper they go, the more they realize the scale of this operation. Then they reach it. Room 8, the bricked-up entrance. They break through the wall. Their flashlights sweep across the interior, gold bars, stacked floor to ceiling. Not dozens, not hundreds, thousands. Reichsbank reserves, national gold from occupied countries, 8,198 gold bars they'll later count, each one stamped with Nazi insignia or the marks of Belgium, Austria, the Netherlands. Over 100 tons of gold bullion. But that's not all. The tunnel system branches, other chambers, other rooms, canvas bags filled with currency, Reichsmarks, dollars, pounds, francs, artwork in crates, more than 2,000 pieces, paintings by Rembrandt, Dürer, Raphael, sculptures, tapestries, all stolen from museums, private collections, Jewish families across Europe. And then something else, something smaller but infinitely more disturbing, bags of personal effects, wedding rings, dental gold, eyeglasses, taken from concentration camp victims, thousands of items melted down or prepared for melting. The wealth of the murdered, Tressler stares at the hoard. The magnitude of what they found sinks in slowly. This isn't a battlefield discovery. This is the financial heart of the Nazi war machine. The Reich's reserves, the plunder of an entire continent, all hidden here, 2,000 feet underground, while the Wehrmacht collapsed overhead. He radios headquarters immediately, uses coded language. By nightfall, April 7th, word has reached Third Army Headquarters. General George S. Patton is informed. Then Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force, SHA-EF. Eisenhower himself. The Americans have captured more than a mine. They've captured the Third Reich's treasury. And in those dark salt caverns, surrounded by stolen gold and the ashes of atrocity, they've found evidence of something the world is only beginning to understand, the systematic looting of Europe and the industrial murder of millions. The question now is what to do with it. and how much more is still out there, hidden in the ruins of Hitler's collapsing empire. The Kaiserota mine doesn't just hold treasure, it holds evidence. Evidence of a system so vast, so methodically organized, that it took the entire German banking apparatus to execute. Start with the Reichsbank, Germany's central bank. By 1945, it's no longer just managing currency and fiscal policy. It's a clearinghouse for stolen wealth. Gold reserves from Austria, seized in 1938 when the Wehrmacht marched into Vienna. The Austrian National Bank's holdings transferred directly to Berlin. Belgium 1940, the Nazis take 198 tons of gold. Some of it they ship out before the Belgian government can evacuate it to London. Holland 1940, another 140 tons. France 1940, the Banque de France loses its reserves to German control. But that's just the beginning. National reserves are one thing. What the Americans find in Merkers is something else entirely. The SS has been operating its own economic system. The Wirtschaftsverwaltungshauptamt, the Economic and Administrative Main Office. It manages concentration camp labor, confiscates property from Jews, political prisoners, Roma, anyone the regime deems undesirable. When the deportations begin in earnest, 1942, 1943, 1944, the system accelerates. Jews across Europe are stripped of everything before they're murdered. Bank accounts, businesses, homes, jewelry, art collections built over generations, and then the personal items. Wedding rings torn from fingers at Auschwitz, gold teeth pulled from corpses. It all flows into the SS economic machine. Some of it is melted down immediately, some stored, some deposited with the Reichsbank. The bank doesn't ask questions. It accepts the deposits, processes them, integrates them into Germany's gold reserves. By 1945, the distinction between national reserves and victim gold has been deliberately obscured. It's all mixed together. Bars stamped with official Nazi insignia could contain gold from Belgian central banks or from the fillings of dead prisoners. The Reichsbank knows this. Senior officials have been complicit from the start. When the Americans break through that brick wall in Merkers, they're looking at the end result of this system. Some bars are clearly marked. Belgium, Netherlands, Austria. Others bear only Nazi stamps. Reichsbank Vice President Emil Pohl will later testify at Nuremberg. He'll admit that the bank processed shipments marked Melmer, named after SS Captain Bruno Melmer, who delivered concentration camp plunder directly to the Reichsbank. Pohl saw the bags. He knew what was in them: jewelry, watches, coins, foreign currency. He accepted the deposits anyway. The scale becomes clear as American troops continue cataloging. Room 8 contains the gold, 8,198 bars, total weight approximately 100 tons. Valuation in 1945 dollars, $238 million, equivalent to roughly $4 billion today. But the currency is worth even more in practical terms. They find 2.76 billion Reichsmarks, 1.3 million British pounds, millions in dollars, franc, Swiss francs, Swedish kroner. The Nazis have been hoarding foreign currency for black market purchases. Tungsten from Portugal, ball bearings from Sweden. Any material the war economy needs that can't be produced domestically. Then there's the art, crate after crate. Paintings removed from their frames, rolled carefully, stored in climate-controlled chambers, looted from the Rothschild collection in Paris, from Dutch museums, from private homes in Warsaw, Prague, Budapest. Some pieces are recorded in Nazi inventories, others aren't. Some are destined for Hitler's planned Führer Museum in Linz. Others were claimed by senior Nazi officials for their personal collections. Goering alone amassed more than 1,500 artworks, stolen, extorted, or purchased, with money confiscated from Jewish families, and everywhere, the personal items, the things that make the American soldiers stop and stare. Thousands upon thousands of gold wedding bands, children's jewelry, watches, cigarette cases engraved with initials. These aren't treasures, they're remnants, evidence of lives erased. The Americans work around the clock. Engineers inspect the mine's structural integrity. MPs guard every entrance. Intelligence officers photograph everything, catalog everything. They bring in portable generators, floodlights. The salt caverns glow with harsh artificial light. Shadows stretch across walls carved by miners a century before the Nazis ever existed. On April 12th, General Eisenhower arrives, Supreme Commander of Allied forces in Europe. He's heard the reports, read the inventories, but he needs to see it himself. He descends into the mine with Patton and General Omar Bradley. They walk through room 8, stand among the gold bars. Eisenhower's face is stone. He understands immediately what this means, not just militarily, but historically. This is evidence, proof that will be needed at trials, documentation of crimes that go beyond warfare into something darker. Patton is less restrained. He walks among the stacked bullion, picks up a bar, feels its weight. If these were $10 bills instead of gold bricks, he says, they would make a pile 60 feet high, covering an area the size of a football field. But it's the personal items that hit hardest. Eisenhower examines a bag of wedding rings. He orders photographers to document everything. He wants the world to see this, wants evidence preserved. Because already, even before the war ends, he knows what's coming, the denials, the revisions, the claims that reports of Nazi atrocities have been exaggerated. Here, 2,000 feet underground in a salt mine in Thuringia, there's no room for denial. The gold doesn't lie. The rings don't lie. The Reich kept meticulous records of its own crimes, and the Americans have found them all. The Americans face an immediate problem. The mine sits in territory that will soon be handed over to the Soviets. According to the Yalta Conference Agreement signed in February 1945, Thuringia falls within the Soviet occupation zone. The Red Army is advancing from the east. Time is running out. Eisenhower makes the decision instantly. Everything comes out. Now, he assigns the job to Third Army, Patton's command. They have days, maybe a week. After that, the Soviets arrive and the political situation becomes infinitely more complicated. The gold belongs to occupied nations. The art belongs to museums and families. The personal effects belong to victims who will never reclaim them. None of it can be left in Soviet hands. Not because the Americans don't trust their allies, though they don't, but because repatriation needs to happen through proper channels. Through agreements already being negotiated for post-war occupation, Third Army moves fast. Combat engineers arrive April 13th. They assess the mine's elevator system. It's designed for ore, not treasure. Maximum capacity per trip, approximately 2 tons. They need to move over 100 tons of gold alone, plus currency, plus artwork, plus crates of documents the Nazis stored alongside the financial records. Major Ralph Pearson takes charge of the operation. He's a logistics officer, spent the last year moving supplies through France and Germany as Third Army advanced. This is different. This isn't ammunition or rations, it's evidence. Every bar needs to be counted, every crate inventoried, every discrepancy noted. The paperwork is staggering. They work in shifts, 24 hours a day. The mine never stops. Down in the tunnels, soldiers load hand carts, push them to the elevator shaft, load the platform, send it up. At the surface, trucks wait. Armored vehicles when possible. Regular transport when necessary. Each truck is guarded. Armed MPs, officers riding shotgun. They drive convoys to Frankfurt, to the Reichsbank building there, now under Allied control. Secure vaults, armed guards, proper storage until repatriation can be organized. The gold comes out first. 8,098 bars. Each one weighs approximately 12.5 kilograms, 27 pounds. Soldiers carry them 2 at a time. The bars are dense, heavy. They leave marks in soldiers' hands. By the second day, gloves are mandatory. The work is exhausting. 2,000 feet down. Load the carts. Push to the elevator. Ride up. Unload. Repeat. Hour after hour. On April 15th, a New York Times correspondent is allowed into the mine. He descends with an escort, watches the operation, files a story that reaches American newspapers within days. Greatest treasure trove in history found, reads the headline. The article describes the caverns, the gold, the art, but it's carefully worded. The full horror of the victim gold isn't published yet. That will come later at Nuremberg. The currency takes longer. It's stored in bags, canvas sacks filled with bills. Some are neatly bundled. Others are loose, thrown into containers hastily as the Reich collapsed. There are denominations from dozens of countries. Soldiers find British pounds printed in 1920, French francs from 1935, dollars, Swiss francs, even gold coins, American eagles, British sovereigns, French Napoleons. The Nazis hoarded anything with value, then the art. This requires specialists. The Monuments, Fine Arts, and Archives Program, MFAA officers nicknamed Monuments Men, arrives April 16th. Captain Robert Posey and Private First Class Lincoln Kirstein are among the first. Kirstein is a Harvard-educated art scholar who enlisted specifically to help recover looted artwork. He descends into the mine and stares. Crates stacked in chambers, paintings rolled carefully, sculptures wrapped in canvas, medieval altarpieces, Renaissance portraits, modern works by Matisse and Picasso. They work methodically. Open each crate. Document the contents. Photograph when possible. Some pieces are easily identified. Museum inventory numbers still visible. Others have been deliberately stripped of provenance. The Nazis wanted plausible deniability. If ownership couldn't be proven, the Reich could claim legal acquisition. But the records exist. In other parts of the mine, filing cabinets, ledgers, Reichsbank documents showing deposits and transfers. Nazi bureaucracy was meticulous. Every transaction recorded, every shipment logged. The Americans gather it all. The paper trail will be crucial at Nuremberg. It will prove that senior officials knew that the looting was systematic, that it reached the highest levels of Nazi leadership. By April 20th, most of the treasure is out. Over 100 tons of gold, billions in currency, more than 2,000 artworks, crates of jewelry and personal items, documents filling entire trucks. The mine is nearly empty. Soviet forces are 50 miles away. Closing fast. On April 24th, the last convoy leaves Merkers. Patton's Third Army has pulled off one of the greatest recovery operations in history. They've done it in under 2 weeks. Every item cataloged, every piece documented. The treasure is now secured in Frankfurt, under American control, ready for the long process of repatriation, but Merkers isn't the only site. As Third Army advances, they find more. Smaller caches, hidden rooms, castle vaults. The Nazis scattered their plunder across Germany as the Allies closed in. Berchtesgaden, Hitler's mountain retreat, yields Göring's private art collection. The Alpsee salt mine in Austria holds thousands more pieces. Neuschwanstein Castle in Bavaria. The mines at Siegen, Heilbronn, the Monuments Men, fan out across the American occupation zone. They're racing against time, against looters, against the chaos of a collapsing Reich. Every day they discover something new. Every discovery adds to the inventory of Nazi crimes. And at the center of it all, Merkers remains the crown jewel, the single largest find. The moment when American soldiers broke through a brick wall and found the beating financial heart of Hitler's Reich, hidden in the darkness, waiting to be dragged into the light. The discovery at Merkers exposes the true scope of the problem. Nazi looting isn't opportunistic. It's industrial, organized, executed with the same ruthless efficiency the Reich applies to everything else. The system began before the war even started. 1938, Austria. The Anschluss brings not just territorial expansion, but economic seizure. Jewish families are forced to sell businesses at fractions of their value. Art collections are purchased under duress, sign the papers or face arrest. The Rothschild banking family loses palaces, estates, thousands of artworks. The process is refined, legalized through Nazi racial laws. What can't be taken legally is simply confiscated. Then the invasions begin. Poland, 1939. Krakow's National Museum is emptied within weeks. Da Vinci's Lady with an Ermine, taken. Rembrandt's Landscape with the Good Samaritan, taken. Hans Frank, Nazi governor of occupied Poland, claims Leonardo's portrait for his personal residence. It hangs in his office while he oversees the murder of millions. France, 1940. The looting intensifies. The Einsatzstab Reichsleiter Rosenberg Institute for the Occupied Territories becomes the primary looting organization. Alfred Rosenberg, Nazi ideologist, runs it. His teams sweep through Paris. They target Jewish collections first. The Rothschilds again. The Schloss Collection. The Bernheim-Jeune Gallery. The Seligman Brothers. 71,000 artworks and artifacts from France alone. Trainloads heading east to Germany. Göring claims first pick. He visits Paris repeatedly, tours private galleries, points at paintings. They're packed and shipped to Cavern Hall, his estate outside Berlin. He amasses Vermeer's, Rembrandt's, French Impressionists. He fancies himself a connoisseur. In reality, he's a thief with institutional backing. Hitler wants different pieces. He's planning the Führer Museum, a massive complex in Linz, his boyhood city. It will be the greatest art museum in the world, displaying Germanic cultural supremacy. His agents compile lists. They scour occupied Europe. Anything deemed worthy goes into special collections, protected, stored, waiting for the museum that will never be built. But by 1943, the strategic situation shifts. Allied bombing intensifies. Berlin isn't safe. Neither are other German cities. The Nazis need storage, somewhere secure, somewhere protected from aerial bombardment, salt mines, perfect solution, stable temperature, controlled humidity, deep underground, bomb-proof. Germany has dozens of them. Austria has more. The evacuation begins. Museum pieces from Berlin, the Reichsbank reserves, party archives, all moved underground. Alps in Austria becomes the primary art repository. More than 6,500 paintings, sculptures, tapestries. The Ghent altarpiece, Jan van Eyck's masterpiece from Belgium, is hidden there. Michelangelo's Madonna of Bruges from Belgium. Vermeer's The Astronomer. By 1945, Alps holds the greatest concentration of stolen art in history, and the Nazis almost destroy it all. March 1945. Gauleiter. August Eigruber, Nazi district leader for Upper Austria, receives orders. Hitler's Nero decree is in effect. If the Reich falls, everything falls. Scorched earth. Leave nothing for the Allies. Eigruber interprets this literally. He orders 500-kilogram bombs placed inside Alps. Enough explosives to collapse the mine entirely. Bury everything. Better destroyed than captured. The mine's curator, Dr. Herbert Seiberl, is horrified. So are the miners. They've been protecting these artworks for years. They know what's inside. They sabotage the plan, remove detonators, replace bombs with dummies. Eigruber doesn't realize until it's too late. May 5, 1945, American forces reach Alps, the 80th Infantry Division. They secure the mine without resistance. Monuments officers arrive days later. Captain Robert Posey, the same officer who worked at Merker's, descends into the tunnels. He finds chambers packed with crates. The Ghent altarpiece, the Madonna of Bruges, Dürer, Vermeer, all intact, but time is critical here too. Alps sits in what will become the Soviet zone. The Americans have weeks at most. The recovery operation begins immediately. Different from Merker's, the art requires delicate handling. Specialists only. Conservators when available. Each piece is photographed, documented, carefully removed. Transported to Munich's central collecting point. Other sites yield different treasures. Neuschwanstein Castle, Bavaria's fairy tale fortress, becomes a storage depot for the Rothschild collections from Paris. American soldiers find rooms stacked with furniture, paintings, tapestries, silverware. Everything catalogued by the Nazis. Every piece marked with coded provenance that will take years to decode. At Berchtesgaden, Hitler's mountain compound, soldiers find Göring's collection. He fled before the Americans arrived, left everything behind. Hundreds of paintings, sculptures, medieval religious artifacts, all looted, all waiting in his personal gallery. The mine at Heilbronn holds something different. Not treasure, records, Nazi party archives, personnel file, financial documents. The SS kept meticulous records of its own crimes. The Americans find evidence of bank accounts in Switzerland, gold transfers to neutral countries, payments to collaborators. It's an intelligence windfall, names, dates, transaction records, everything needed for post-war prosecutions. But there's a darker reality emerging. The monuments men number fewer than 400. They're covering millions of square miles. Germany, Austria, parts of Czechoslovakia, northern Italy. They're outnumbered, overwhelmed. And they're not the only ones searching. Soviet forces are confiscating everything they find. Reparations, they call it. Germany destroyed Soviet cities, Soviet museums. Now the Red Army takes what it wants. Entire trainloads of art disappear into Soviet territory. Some will surface decades later in Moscow and St. Petersburg. Much will vanish entirely. Black marketeers are everywhere. Displaced persons desperate for cash. German civilians hiding family heirlooms. Allied soldiers taking souvenirs. The chaos of occupation creates opportunities. Small pieces disappear, jewelry, coins, portable paintings. They filter into underground markets. Some will never be recovered. The monuments men do what they can. They establish collecting points, Munich, Wiesbaden, Offenbach. They bring in experts, art historians, museum curators. They begin the painstaking work of identification. Provenance research, matching stolen pieces to rightful owners. It's a process that will take decades. Some pieces are easy. Museum stamps visible. Others are nearly impossible. Ownership records destroyed in the war. By summer 1945, the Americans have secured approximately 10,000 artworks. Millions of items total when including books, documents, personal property. The Nazis looted an entire continent. Now the Allies face the task of putting it back together, piece by piece, family by family, nation by nation. But questions remain. How much is still missing? How much was destroyed? How much found its way to neutral countries through Nazi smuggling networks? Switzerland, Spain, Portugal, Argentina. The search will continue for generations. The treasure is secure. The art is catalogued. Now comes the harder part, deciding what to do with it all. August 1945. The war in Europe has been over 3 months. Germany is divided into occupation zones: American, British, French, Soviet. The Allied powers are already disagreeing about post-war arrangements. The partnership that won the war is fracturing. And in the middle of it all sits the greatest collection of stolen property in human history. The Americans established the Tripartite Gold Commission in September 1946, United States, Britain, France. Their mandate? Redistribute Nazi gold to nations that lost their reserves. Belgium gets its share, Netherlands, Austria, Luxembourg. The process is methodical. Verify national claims. Match gold to pre-war records. Calculate percentages. Transfer bullion back to rightful governments, but the victim gold presents an impossible problem. The personal items from concentration camps. The dental gold. The wedding rings. How do you return those? Most owners are dead. Families destroyed. No heirs to claim them. The rings bear no names. The dental gold has been melted. Identity is impossible. The Allies make a decision. The victim gold, the portion that can be identified as coming from murdered individuals rather than national reserves, will be monetized, sold. The proceeds will go to refugee organizations, to survivors, to rebuilding Jewish communities destroyed by the Holocaust. It's not justice, but it's the only practical solution available. The art presents different challenges. National treasures are straightforward. The Ghent altarpiece returns to Belgium in 1945. Ceremonies, photographs, proof that the Allies are liberators, not conquerors. Museum pieces stolen from the Louvre return to France. Dutch paintings return to Amsterdam. These are easy cases. Ownership clear. Provenance documented. Private collections are harder. The Rothschild family lost thousands of pieces across Europe. After the war, the surviving Rothschilds begin reclamation efforts. They hire lawyers, submit claims, but proving ownership is complex. The Nazis deliberately obscured provenance, forced sales under duress. Are those legal transactions? Courts will debate this for decades. Then there are the truly difficult cases. A Jewish family in Vienna owned a painting. The Nazis seized it in 1938. The family was murdered at Auschwitz. No heirs survived. Who owns the painting now? Austria claims it as national heritage. Jewish organizations argue it should be sold to benefit survivors. Lawyers argue both sides. The painting sits in storage while courts decide. The Munich Central Collecting Point becomes the center of restitution efforts. Established in 1945 in the Führerbau, one of Hitler's administrative buildings. The irony isn't lost on anyone. Nazi headquarters becomes the site where Nazi crimes are undone. Art historian Craig Hugh Smith runs the operation. Thousands of pieces flow through, each one photographed, researched, cross-referenced against Nazi looting records. They publish catalogs, circulate them to museums, governments, families. Claims come in by the thousands. Each requires investigation, documentation, legal review. The process is overwhelming. The monuments men were never equipped for this. They were soldiers tasked with protection and recovery. Now they're arbiters of property law across a destroyed continent. By 1949, most major pieces have been returned, but thousands remain, some with unclear provenance, others with competing claims. The collecting points begin transferring these to German authorities. The argument: Germany must take responsibility for Nazi crimes. Let German institutions handle restitution. It's a decision that will have consequences for decades, because not everyone acts in good faith. Some German museums keep pieces that should be returned. Some private collectors acquired looted art and refuse to acknowledge its origins. Without international law enforcement, restitution depends on voluntary compliance. Many don't comply. The financial aspect concludes faster. By 1948, most monetary gold has been redistributed through the Tripartite Commission. Final accounting, approximately 280 million was Nazi gold recovered and returned. But questions persist. How much gold did the Nazis move to neutral countries during the war? Switzerland took German gold deposits. So did Spain, Portugal, Sweden. Some of that gold was looted. Some came from concentration camp victims. After the war, these countries are reluctant to investigate. They were neutral. They claim they acted in good faith. They resist restitution efforts. It takes 50 years before Switzerland begins serious investigation. 1996. International pressure mounts. Swiss banks finally audit Holocaust-era accounts. They find billions in assets deposited by Jewish families before the war. Accounts the banks never returned. Gold transactions with Nazi Germany that Switzerland processed without questions. The revelations shock the world. Switzerland agrees to settlements, creates funds for survivors. But it's 1996, most survivors are dead. Justice delayed is justice denied. The same pattern repeats across Europe. Artworks surface in unexpected places. 1998, Austria passes restitution laws finally addressing forced sales from the 1930s. The landmark case, Gustav Klimt's portrait of Adele Bloch-Bauer, stolen from a Jewish family in Vienna, hung in Austrian National Gallery for decades. After legal battles, it's returned to the family's heir in 2006. She sells it for $135 million. It's vindication. But it's 60 years late. Recent decades bring new discoveries. 2012, German authorities find 1,500 artworks in a Munich apartment. Cornelius Gerlit, son of a Nazi-era art dealer, hoarded them for decades. Many are looted pieces, never returned, never reported. The discovery shows how much remains hidden. How many private collections still contain stolen art? How incomplete the post-war restitution efforts truly were. The monument's men succeeded in their immediate mission. They saved Merkers, secured Alps Sea, protected treasures from destruction. Over 5 million cultural items were recovered and returned. It's an achievement unprecedented in military history. No army before or since has devoted resources to cultural preservation on that scale, but the larger mission remains incomplete. As of 2025, thousands of artworks remain missing. Families still search for paintings last seen in 1943. Museums still discover their collections contain looted pieces. Restitution cases still wind through courts 80 years after the war ended. The gold from Merkers is gone, distributed, melted, returned to central banks that used it to rebuild post-war economies. The currency was spent. The personal items were sold for survivors' benefit. Nothing physical remains of that April day when 2 American soldiers stumbled onto the Reich's hidden treasury. What remains is the record, the photographs Eisenhower ordered, the documents cataloging every bar, every painting, every bag of wedding rings torn from dead fingers, the evidence presented at Nuremberg, the proof that Nazi crimes extended beyond battlefield atrocities into systematic bureaucratized theft on a continental scale, and the precedent. After Merkers, the world understood that armies have obligations beyond victory, obligations to protect cultural heritage, to prevent looting, to ensure restitution. Those principles are now codified in international law. The Hague Convention, UNESCO protocols, all trace their origins to those American soldiers who chose to count gold bars instead of ignoring them, who documented art instead of claiming it, who understood that some things matter beyond military necessity. Merkers proved that even in war's chaos, justice is possible. Incomplete justice, imperfect justice, but justice nonetheless. The treasure train at Merkers carried more than gold. It carried evidence. And evidence, carefully preserved, becomes history. And history, honestly told, becomes the foundation for a world that remembers